This is the Minions. They're small, they're yellow, and they work for a villain named Gru, but one day a bunch of them break free from their evil overlord and go exploring on their own. And while out on their field trip, they stumble upon something that completely baffles their tiny little minds, a rock. At first they're not sure what to make of this strange, mysterious object, but then a couple of brave minions decide to pick it up and examine it more closely, and that's when everything goes wrong. You see, these minions have been living in a self-contained facility under the watchful eye of Gru and his army of laser-wielding henchmen. So they haven't exactly had much opportunity to experience the world around them, let alone learn about physics. So when one minion picks up the rock and another tries to grab it from him, they're shocked to discover that the rock doesn't just float away like they thought it would. Instead, it falls to the ground. Now, most of us might take this discovery for granted since we learned about gravity pretty much the second we were born. But for these minions, this was a completely new concept. And they spent the rest of the day trying to figure out exactly what was going on. Some of them tried jumping up and down and others tried spinning around in circles. But no matter what they did, the rock just kept on falling. Eventually, they even tried launching the rock into the air with a makeshift catapult made out of bananas and a tire swing. But again, the rock just fell back down to Earth every time. As the sun began to set, the minions gathered together to try and puzzle out what was happening. One suggested that maybe the rock was actually a bird that had been turned to stone by an evil wizard. Another said that it was clearly a baby dinosaur that had been preserved in amber. But these theories were quickly shot down by the more scientifically minded minions who pointed out that neither of those things could possibly explain why the rock was made out of metal. After a few more minutes of fruitless discussion, they all decided to call it a day and went back to their little minion hole to sleep. But their problems were far from over. You see, now that they knew there was such a thing as gravity, they couldn't help but wonder what else was out there. So as soon as the sun came up the next morning, they were out of their little minion hole, and on the road again, this time with a whole bunch of rocks. They rolled, they skipped, they even tried bouncing them off of each other like some kind of weird, creepy conga line. But no matter what they did, they just kept on falling. And that's when the minions made another shocking discovery. It turns out that the reason some of them were able to stay up in the air for longer than others wasn't because they were more aerodynamic. It was because they were heavier. Of course, we all knew that heavier objects fall faster, but to these minions, this was a completely new concept. In fact, they were so shocked by this discovery that they all started screaming at the top of their lungs. And that's when the real trouble began. You see, the sound of their screams attracted the attention of a nearby farmer who came over to investigate. And when he saw a bunch of strange yellow creatures rolling around in the dirt, he naturally assumed that they were a threat. So he grabbed his shotgun and started blasting away. Of course, this didn't kill the minions, but it did knock them all out. And when they woke up, they were back in their little minion hole with no memory of the previous day's events. Gru was furious when he found out that they'd broken free from their enclosure, and he was even more mad when he found out that they trashed his lab in the process. But the minions didn't care. They were too busy staring at a rock, wondering why it was made out of metal. Hey, don't forget to leave a like, and if you want to see more short videos, stay tuned.